Good evening and welcome every pony to the Pony Public Library. This is the first episode of what we hope to be a very long-running series. I'm your host, Dev Knights, and with me is my co-host, Pio.
Hello, every pony. Insert some political banter, which I do not have this week.
Fair enough. The Pony Public Library is going to be a series that focuses around fanfics and reading them how they were intended to be. Each week we will have a guest author on, and we will read one of his or her fanfics at her discretion. So, this week we have Tamar, who has done... Well, I'll let him introduce himself.
Well, hello, every pony. My name is Tamar. You may have seen me on EQD, but I laugh. Because you clearly definitely haven't. I don't think I'm a very well-known writer. I write a majority of short stories. I've really tried to write a variety of styles in them. So I've tried to write a comedy story. I tried to write a more... I think I started out with a more slice-of-life one. I recently plumbed the depths and went for a good old-fashioned sad fic, which was quite fun to write, really sort of milking the emotion in there. And I also tried my hand at a fairly longer story. And can I say, writing a long story is hard. They don't tell you that when you start on a long story. Think, oh, this will be fun. I'll write this long story, and I'll really enjoy writing it. It will take your life and your time, and it doesn't go away. Like I wrote my long story. It was called Icarus. It's 20,000 words, and it took me about 3 months to go from start to finish with having the idea and working it out with the editors, so it just took forever. So I have so much respect for the authors who write the longer stories like that. But yeah, those are the sorts of stories I usually write. I write shorter stories, more slice of lifey, and a couple of try to splice a few other genres into that.
Okay then. So will you tell us what fic we will be reading today?
Yes. The fic that I've chosen is a fic called Scootaloo in Cloudsdale. It's the first story I had featured on Equestria Daily, which I was very pleased to see. I think it's one of my favourite stories, partly because it's I think it's the first one that gave me the confidence to really keep on writing, perhaps a little bit more seriously, for the pony fiction. But also it's the first one that really got any sort of public attention, it's always really nice to get lots of people giving you nice comments and feedback. I like it particularly myself because it's a fairly simple slice of lifey type story. It's just between Scootaloo and Rainbow Dash. You can imagine it in any kind of canon you want. You can imagine it any time you want, and I like to think that you could see it in an episode. So I quite like that aspect to it myself.
Okay. Well, without further ado, you shall begin reading.
Right, well, this is Scootaloo in Cloudsdale by Tamar and narrated by the author. Am I supposed to be commenting on the story as I read it, or am I just reading it cold?
If you read it cold, if you have anything that you wish to chip in at any time where it's like, this just came to me.
I will say just before I start, opening line, or even sort of opening section, it took me forever to think about the opening section. That was one of the bits that I couldn't decide on before I put it up. I'm not entirely sure how happy I am with the way it starts. It's a little bit cop-out, but I just quite like starting cold, so it kind of worked quite well for me there. I don't know, see what you think of it. Anyway. So, high above Equestria, higher than the birds fly, a cyan Pegasus perched on a cloud, breathing deeply.
This is it.
She whispered to herself.
Miss Rainbow Dash, fastest flyer in Equestria, is going to attempt a double super awesome sonic rain boom. She needs complete concentration to pull it off. If she puts one feather out of line, it's over.
She spread her wings slowly, unable to avoid a slight nervous quiver.
This trick was struck off the Wonderbolt's routine centuries ago, when the great jet flash almost killed attempting the maneuver. Miss Rainbow Dash knows the dangers. We need complete silence, please, as she mentally prepares herself for the challenge.
Sweat beaded on her forehead as she closed her eyes as gently as she could. Her wings fully spread ached to beat, but she held them still. In her
In-
mind's eye, sorry.
Sorry, you've got the computer.
This is
annoying.
fun, guys. In her mind's eye, she envisaged the jump, the plummet, the execution. Her mind zeroed in on the final instant of completion, excluding all other thoughts. Then, silently, she reared up onto her hind legs, gave a powerful flap of her wings, then closed them and dived over the edge. Icy wind raced up and beat her face, gathering intensity until it tore her eyes open and tugged at her rainbow mane. Her wings, snapped shut to her sides, were begging to be opened.
Not yet.
She growled to herself as she plummeted faster and faster. When she had gathered enough speed, she opened her wings, gasping as they were wrenched backwards. With all the strength she could master, she beat them up and down, increasing her speed. She streaked ever faster downwards, a rainbow trail beginning to form behind her, and a barrier of air building in front of her. Almost there. She could physically feel the barrier pushing back at her, but that was fine. She didn't need to push back. She just had to smash through.
Rainbow Dash!
Huh?
Rainbow lost concentration, confused. Who
Rainbow
could be calling her name?
Oh, sorry. Rainbow Dash! Oh,
That's who counts. Her left wing began to buffet. In an instant, it caught a gust from the barrier of air, and she lost control, barreling outwards into a side spin at impossible speed until surely she would...
Rainbow Dash!
Rainbow awoke with a start.
Yay! You're awake!
The voice belonged to Scootaloo, who was jumping up and down under the tree where Rainbow had been napping with a wide smile on her face. Rainbow gave a groan and rubbed her forehead.
Scootaloo, what are you doing here? Oh, it's my head hurt.
Scootaloo giggled.
You woke up a bit aggressively and smacked your head up on that branch up there.
Rainbow glared at the offending branch and continued to rub her forehead.
What did you wake me for?
She asked, a little put out. She couldn't remember her dream, but she had a feeling she had been enjoying it.
Because you didn't look like you were sleeping very peacefully. You kept muttering to yourself about double super awesome sonic rainbows.
Rainbow got up from her perch in the tree and fluttered down to stand in front of the purple-maned filly.
You shouldn't wake sleeping ponies.
She said, giving the small Pegasus a gentle cuff round the ear.
Anyway, I know you didn't wake me just because I was having a bad dream. What is it? Actually, shouldn't you be in school?
Scootaloo shook her head.
Nope. Miss Cheerly is sick today with a nasty cold, so we have a day off. I couldn't find Sweetie Belle or Apple Bloom, so I came to find you.
Came to find me?
Rainbow's pride swelled slightly.
All right then. I'm not doing anything today. The weather's scheduled to run its natural course until tomorrow morning. What do you want to do?
Scootaloo sat down and smiled up at Rainbow with her enormous purple eyes.
No idea!
She said brightly.
I knew you'd think of something awesome though.
Rainbow scratched her head. She hadn't expected to be tested for awesome ideas so suddenly.
Well, I haven't been to Cloudsdale for a while, and I was going to see a couple of the weather ponies there about next week's rainbows. Want to tag along?
Scootaloo deflated and shuffled slightly.
Maybe not.
She gave her tiny wings a weak beat, looking at them sadly.
Really? It must have been ages since you've been to Cloudsdale. I know I've been itching to go for a bit. Come on, it'll be fun.
Scootaloo blushed slightly and didn't look at Rainbow. Now Rainbow was confused.
Scootaloo, you've never been to Cloudsdale?
Well, no, I haven't.
Scootaloo gave her wings another little flap.
Never ever?
Said Dash incredulously.
Never ever.
Scootaloo replied. Her ears turned downwards.
I've always lived in Ponyville. I can't fly yet, and no one's ever taken me. So, no, I haven't been to Cloudsdale.
Well then, it's settled.
Rainbow said firmly.
You and I are going to Cloudsdale right now. I don't care about anything else, not until I've shown you how fantastic it is. It's the Citadel of the Pegasite, your Citadel, and you have to see it.
Well, I know, but I can't.
Scootaloo didn't finish her sentence.
You don't have to.
Rainbow giggled and turned the glum filly's face upwards with a hoof.
Why should that stop you?
Rainbow turned slightly and crouched down beside Scootaloo.
Right on my back till we get to Cloudsdale. Then you'll be able to walk on the clouds.
Scootaloo gave an excited gasp, her eyes filled with twinkling stars of delight.
Really?
Yes, really. Now come on, the sooner we get off, the sooner we'll be in Cloudsdale. Just mind my wings and hold on to my mane.
Trembling with anticipation, Scootaloo clambered onto Rainbow's back, positioning herself behind her wings and taking hold of her multicoloured mane. Rainbow stood and trotted forward so she wasn't under the tree. She turned to Scootaloo and said with a wink,
Ready?
Ready! Thank you so...
She didn't finish her sentence, as in one powerful movement Rainbow Dash unfurled her wings and thrust them downwards while pushing forcefully against the ground with her hind legs. Together they leapt into the air and soared upwards. Scootaloo's breath was jerked from her as she dived forward and wrapped her hooves around Rainbow's neck.
This is it.
She thought.
I'm actually flying.
Rainbow flew up and out of Ponyville with the filly holding on as tightly as she could. Scootaloo chanced to look behind her to see her hometown disappearing downwards. She could see the schoolhouse, the library and carousel boutique. Then further over to the left was Sweet Apple Acres, a carpet of apple trees with the barn nestled in the middle. Scootaloo did her best not to look down. She knew it was silly for a Pegasus to be afraid of heights, but the truth was she'd never been high before. Somebody pointed out in the comments that could be misconstrued, which I find quite amusing. It wasn't quite what I intended. Anyway. Instead, she closed her eyes and hugged Rainbow as hard as she could, concentrating on the steady rhythm of her wing beats. After a while, she opened her eyes again and looked back in the direction of Ponyville. It had disappeared from view, and below them was nothing but fields and trees with a large river running through them.
What river is that?
She called to Rainbow Dash above the wind.
That's the River Equine.
Rainbow replied.
Cloudsdale used it to ensure the Citadel never evaporates. There's always a supply of water for the clouds there, no matter how hot or dry the weather is. Every few weeks when Cloudsdale drifts over the river, it sucks up a ton of water, which lasts it until next time it's close enough.
Just one more slight point. I wrote that before Hurricane Fluttershy. So I felt quite cool when that episode came out, if I may say. But please go on.
Speaking of which, we're getting close. Can you hear the trumpets?
Scootaloo trained her ears forward and heard the distant sound of a trumpet fanfare lost in the wind.
What are the trumpets for?
They sound the trumpets to guide Pegasi towards the Citadel. Since it isn't attached to the ground, it floats wherever it wants, so if they didn't, the sky would be full of lost Pegasi trying to fly in Cloudsdale.
Scootaloo giggled.
Does it ever just drift away and get lost completely?
It did once. They had to send out search parties and it didn't turn up until about a week later. Then it almost crashed into Kennelet Castle. They asked a team of unicorns to enchant it so it wouldn't fly too far, but it still drifts around.
They were getting close now and the sound of trumpets filled the air. Rainbow puffed up proudly.
This,
she declared,
is Cloudsdale.
Cloudsdale, citadel of the Pegasi. It towered high above them, a fantastic construction of thick white cloud. It seemed as if the clouds had all been thrown together at haphazard angles, with great swirly towers rising out of the base and falls of water and rainbows flowing down to the land far below. To the far left, Scootaloo could see the Cloud Stadium, flags waving in the wind, and beside it a large building with cloud pillars.
What's that next to the stadium?
Scootaloo asked.
That's the academy, where Fluttershy and I grew up. I'll show you my old stamping ground,
said Rainbow, with a hint of pride in her voice.
And everything else there is to see in Cloudsdale.
It seemed to Scootaloo like the single most amazing creation in all of Equestria. They were approaching the main entrance now, a great staircase of clouds capped with a grand archway. Rainbow flew through the entrance and came to land beside a building adorned with titanic pillars of cloud.
Wow! What building is that?
Asked Scootaloo excitedly.
That's the Council of Pegasine Weather Ponies,
Rainbow answered.
All weather everywhere is scheduled and planned there, except for the weather over the Evergreen Forest.
Scootaloo shuffled off Rainbow's back and stood tentatively on the cloud. Her hooves sank a few inches into the mist, then stopped, supported by an unseen force. Scootaloo pushed the cloud about with her hooves experimentally. Rainbow watched with amusement as the Pegasus filly jumped up in excitement and rolled about on the cloud.
Never stood in a cloud before?
Scootaloo grinned.
Never ever.
Come on then, I'll show you around.
They began with Main Street, a wide street with famous shops on either side. Names like Pegasopolis, Wings, Cloud Hooves and Edge Sky passed Scootaloo by as she wandered down the street next to Rainbow open-mouthed. Some she had heard of before, but most were completely new to her.